This episode of the 12 Monkeys podcast is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Welcome to the 12 Monkeys podcast, a Southgate Media Group production, where we talk all about Sci-Fi Channel's reimagining of the classic science fiction film originally produced by Terry Gilliam and now produced for television by Terry Matalas. I'm your host, Blaire Knight-Graves, executive producer of Professional Geek Podcast, and with me today is Kyle Trembley, the editor-in-chief at TVBinges.com. You can find us on Twitter at BlaireLovesTV and at KyleLovesTV. And remember, both Kyle and Blaire have an E at the end. And you can follow this podcast's Twitter handle at 12MonkeysPod. Hey, Kyle, how you doing today?
Oh, Blaire, I'm just happy that I didn't arrive at this podcast as some kind of deformed, horrible human monster through the time portal.
Yes, a very Dead Space-looking creature for anybody who's into the video games.
Yeah, it was that was some intense stuff. I said it was like Silent Hill.
Oh, yes, Silent Hill's a good reference,
very
too.
Silent Hill.
Yes.
Which I tweeted before you made that Dead Space reference. Our mind is just video games.
Yes, exactly.
All of our points of reference are video games.
Exactly. All video games from like the mid-2000s.
Yes.
Well, Kyle, today you and I are going to be discussing Season 2, Episode 6. No, it is not Episode 6. It's Episode 7.
Oh.
Season 2, Episode 7.
You might say that time just flew by.
Oh.
And the podcast is over. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. We're not making any more. No, we're kidding. So, Season 2, Episode 7, which is titled Meltdown, which I was not able to get the written by, but it was directed by Grant Harvey, who was a producer and director for some of my favorite horror movies, which are the Ginger Snaps movies. They are Canadian horror movies about teenage girls becoming werewolves, and they are magnificent films. So it's very cool to see that he hopped on an episode. Like, this is his only episode of 12 Monkeys that he hopped on because he was like, you know what? This is very horrific. I will do this.
Yeah. I mean, we've been talking now for a while this season about how the show is sort of embracing the horror elements a little bit, and it's never been clearer than here. This was the first half of this episode specifically was really like a horror movie.
Yes, it was. We had plague doctors. We had dudes that were disemboweled. All kinds of
I love that stuff. That's that's right up my alley for all this stuff.
Very, very Kyle stuff.
Yes.
I'm very much all about the plague doctors and things like that. And you know what? Even though I was being a little bit silly on our episode last week about how I was struggling with the more supernatural elements and I was looking for more sci-fi, this kind of made me totally ease into the supernatural elements, and I'm fine.
Well, first of all, I'm glad to hear that. But also, I knew you'd like this episode after I watched it. We haven't talked until now, but I knew you'd like it because it got rid of a lot of these sort of plot mechanics that were not got rid of, but it set aside for a week a lot of the stuff that's been introduced this season about these sort of specifics of the plot. There were no primaries in this episode. It was sort of this in a lot of ways, I think if we look back on the season, is going to feel like a bridge episode between what happened before with these sort of time travel adventures back to specific times to try to prevent primaries from being paradoxed, and whatever the rest of the season is going to be. I think that this, in a lot of ways, put a bow on that primary stuff. The sort of idea of, like, the purpose here is to go back and rescue primaries. I think that we are now moving on, and this episode really, to me, felt very much like a season 1 episode, with just the way that everything took place in, like, a very confined space.
Yes, I totally agree. Would you call this a bottle episode?
No, only because 12 Monkeys does this a lot. There's been a lot of episodes like this. I mean, in the show's run, there's been at least, 3 or 4, maybe more, that have taken place entirely inside the lab. For a different show, it would be. I could definitely see that distinction, but for 12 Monkeys, I think that just the sort of nature of the show, it's a little bit too common for...
Yeah, but the nature of the episode in terms of a very, very specific moment in time that this is all occurring, and this is very much like a real-time episode, which I think is what is always wonderful about bottle episodes, is that you're sort of following the characters as immediately as they experience something, and then just the general expediency and the way that they're all rushing around. I don't know. It's not a bottle episode, as you said, but it was very claustrophobic.
Yes.
Even though it's a space that we are very intimately familiar with, this is probably the most claustrophobic that 12 Monkeys has ever felt, and it just was phenomenal to experience sort of the horror in your own home, as it were. It was they really achieved something magnificent with Meltdown. I'm just very happy. All I'm just going to say is this is great.
Well, good. I will say this episode I'm going to be the slightly grumpy one, although I very much enjoyed the episode. But what I'll point out is that this is like the 95th time that the time machine has malfunctioned. like I feel like this episode would have been a little bit more impressive had we not gone to that well so many times where like something is wrong with the time machine. Like I feel like we've seen that a lot from this show. And so, even though this time it's a little bit of twist on it because the witness was, I think, involved via Cassie in causing this, and it was a different nature of the malfunction. It was more like it was sabotage as opposed to just like a technical problem. But all in all, like, the story of the time machine breaking down in some way, this is like at least a quarter of the show's episodes have been devoted to that or had that as a B or C story. So, I guess my one criticism, which I'll get out of the way up front, and again, I enjoyed the episode, but my one criticism is that I never felt for a second that there were stakes in terms of I didn't buy into that anything could actually happen in the lab in this episode. Like, there was never a feel like, okay, the paradigms of this show are about to change because the lab is about to be destroyed. Like, it never felt like a monumental episode. It felt more like, it felt closer to a bottle episode where nothing, like, really changes, but you do a lot of character work, and you sort of learn more about your characters, and in this case, kill off one or possibly more fringe characters, but not, it never felt like to me like this was an episode that was going to cash in the stakes that it sort of established for itself, which is not like, that's like sort of par for the course for TV. Like in Law and Order, you don't expect like someone like anything about the paradigms of the show to change based on any episode, no matter how threatened any one person is. But I will say, like, I never felt tense in a big picture sense, like we were like maybe like the sense that I had when the plague was being wiped out earlier this season. That really felt like a major shift in the show itself, and I never got a sense like that was ever going to happen, and it ended up not happening here. But
3 characters were removed from the story in this episode.
Well, let's go over the 3 characters.
Okay.
Because there's the guy that was introduced, 4 episodes ago?
Michael Hogan, Colonel Ty from Battlestar Galactica. Yeah. David Eklund, who my heart goes out to. Look at him with his sacrifice of love.
It was a great sacrifice. No one's taken away the sacrifice. That character existed to die. That was a character that 100%, nobody is that nice, laid back, and funny in a show like this unless their sole purpose is to die. You cannot possibly have a character of that nature who is that good-natured, who is not going to die.
Who's a pacifist.
Yeah, pacifist.
Top it all off, he's a pacifist.
He was donezo from the second he stepped on screen. So, not a big surprise. I think the second character would be Ramsey's son, Sam, who I don't think has been taken off the board even remotely.
For a couple episodes, probably, maybe even through...
I think for not a single episode. Because, spoiler alert, I think he's the witness.
I was thinking he was the witness.
He's the witness, right?
But somebody reached out to grab his hand earlier.
I think it might be like older him. It might be who knows?
It's a paradox.
Yeah, but who knows? It's the Red Forest. Do paradoxes exist? I don't know. I don't know, honestly. But it could be anyway. It could be one of the Army of the 12 Monkeys, like generals, lieutenants, whatever. It could have been the Pallid Man.
It could have. I have a
on behalf of the witness.
I agree. I think he is the witness, but I do have one thought as to why he might not be.
Let's hear it.
Cassie being controlled by the witness very clearly was willing to kill that child.
Was she?
I think so.
Did she? I mean, she could have killed him any time.
No, yeah, but I think that, it was either the thing was going to explode or she was going to kill the child.
Didn't she kind of, I mean, okay, so if we're taking this, let's operate from the premise that he is the witness at this point. He doesn't know that he is, but the witness knows that. The witness knows that Sam is the witness in his younger self. Operating from that premise, the idea would be that he needs this chain of events to occur for what reason? He would have needed everything to happen as it happened for some reason. I don't know what that reason is specifically. Maybe it was. I mean, maybe the fact that they had to. He had to do something to get himself out of Cassie's body. Like, I don't know the mechanics. I think we don't know enough about to conclude anything. Like, I don't think the pieces are there for the puzzle to be assembled right now. I don't think that they put the pieces on the board. But what I do know and tweeted is that kid is 7 times too smart for how old he is, which is a problem. I actually tweeted, like, I don't trust this kid for 1 second. He has an IQ of 197. Like if you make a kid that smart, which is a TV trope, but you can't, they've got some kind of devious plans for him. He cannot be that smart. And then, of course, the model that he created, I don't think that the purpose of of him having an intimate knowledge of the entire facility, I don't think the purpose of that was for that one scene where he points down to the river below. I think that there is a much greater purpose to that may involve the little map that Jennifer looked at a few episodes back that seemed to involve the facility itself, like the one made by the witness.
Right. Yeah, I'll buy into it. I mean, I pretty much am on board that Team Witness is Sam, but
yeah,
there's still a part of me that the only part that's unconvinced is the fact that he was willing to hold a gun to himself pretty readily. And also, like, I don't understand paradoxes fully yet, and if the witness is in Cassie's head and holding on to him as a child, does that also count as the witness touching the witness? Like, I don't know how consciousness is versus a physical thing in terms of causing paradoxes, but I have questions.
Yeah, well, and in this episode, I mean, Jones sort of threw out the idea of, like, what was it, like mental time travel or something? Like some kind of weird... Yeah, so we could really get into the weeds on this, but I just don't think the pieces are there right now. I think that this is the start of the plot that will sort of unravel of that. But I will say that I think there are 1,000 great ways to explain why Cassie, being controlled by the witness, had a gun to the potential witness's head as a child. I think that that's a very easy plot point to explain with a variety of reasons. And the other paradox thing, I mean, I don't know, that we just don't know how paradoxes work fully. You know,
right.
We've never seen this whole, as I had called it last week, this whole warging thing, where the witness can warg into Cassie. I don't think that we have any context for understanding what that is or what the witness is doing. So who knows? You know, who knows? But it just, the context clues in this episode made me really think that Sam is the witness. Just the way that he had all this dialogue, the fact that he speaks as if he's like a grad student, the incredibly detailed map or a scale model of the entire time travel facility. Just seems like this is all like Anakin Skywalker behavior. Like this is all like pre-Darth Vader stuff.
Yeah. All right. I can buy into it. So then our third person who has left is our beloved Ramsey, Jose Ramsey.
Yeah. Now what happened with Ramsey? Because I don't even.
He grabbed a bag.
Yeah.
He like had a not a real confrontation, but like a small little like jab at Jones, and he had his bag, and then they showed him walking outside between the normal outside and the red forest outside, and he's like walking away, cool guys walking away from explosions.
But he's not leaving the show. I mean, I would suspect that either next week or the week after, we're going to check in on Ramsey.
I bet he's going to be gone for a couple episodes, and then suddenly he's going to show up at the nick of time to help save somebody.
Well, that would be par for the course. But yeah, I think I don't have a sense of what the next arc is going to be, other than But yeah, I mean, I think everyone's still on the board in a big way, except obviously Dr. Eklund, I believe his name is.
Yes, Dr. Eklund.
R.I.P. Yeah, and so I think I mean, obviously there were a lot of like big events in terms of Ramsey, just the whole deal with Ramsey. But I think the big changes are going to be involved with Cassie, who is now seemed very troubled by the fact that the witness can embody her, and I would say Jones, because she has now lost her former in an alternate timeline love, and now is who knows what she's going to do about that.
Well, and she's seen the power of her own technology, not only with it killing Eklund, but also with Sam being gone. She definitely feels remorse for both of those things. That is not solely focused on Eklund. She definitely, oh my God, Barbara Sukowa, by the way, her performance when she was really like dealing with that, it was very subtle and very, very wonderful, very well done.
I loved the writing of that goodbye scene. Not to reference Star Wars twice in the span of 5 minutes, but it very much felt like the Han Solo being frozen, his dialogue with Princess Leia, where she doesn't give in and give him like the "I love you." She says, "I don't love you."
Yeah,
he's like, "You did love me." It was like just a great. It's like that felt so much truer to those two characters. Like he was 100% chill to the end. Like no one has been more chill on this show than that dude. And she is completely harsh and won't even give in the moment of his disintegration, and he just takes it in stride. I love it.
Well, he knew that they were lovers once upon a time, and he can accept saving her despite her current state, right, which is something kind of nice.
But she was trying to sort of get him out of that. Like, don't make this sacrifice for me. I don't even love you. Like, this is not. You're not being heroic, even though I don't think she believed that, but she's trying to save him. Right. She said that, I think, out of care for him, knowing that they were lovers in a timeline that no longer exists, but it exists to him. And he just sort of giving voice to that idea that, like, in this sort of multiple time stream world, that the time streams that don't factor in to sort of reality as we know it are still like significant, on an individual basis, if not on a major big story basis.
Yes. So there was something interesting that happened in Cassie being trapped in the house. I'm not sure how to even describe that. Being trapped in her own head, locked in a room. She looked out the window and we saw buildings. We saw like a factory. We saw a nuclear plant, perhaps, that had the word Titan on it.
Yes.
Which is very interesting.
That, I think, is probably our best hint at where the second half of this season is going to go.
Yes.
That we have some kind of hint at something existing during the Red Forest. Some kind of something. Some kind of construction has taken place. Some kind of company, I'm assuming, exists.
Yes. I am all in on so we had a plague story. I am all in on a radioactive aftermath story as well.
Right.
All the things that cause horrible apocalypses, I'm okay if we just check them off box by box going through. If the future where the Red Forest lives is because of some horrible nuclear accident.
Yeah. But I wanted to double back to something that we talked about last week, which is the connection between the plague and the army of the 12 monkeys and why the witness would have engineered the plague. Mm-hmm. And I think what it might be, and I don't take credit for this as an original thought, although I'll probably butcher whatever the original thought was, but the idea that the witness needed time travel to be invented And the way to facilitate that would be to wipe out 90% of the population, which is what, of course, sparked Jones to develop time travel. So the concept, he created the plague and unleashed the plague in order to facilitate the invention of time travel, which I think is becoming more and more apparent, or at least hinted at, that that's what started this entire thing. That the invention of time travel is why we have this notion of time as a living entity, and why we have the witness, and why we have the concept, the idea that time is something that's destructible, all happened because time travel was invented. And so the witness, in some time stream, needed that to happen, which is why the plague happened.
That is one of those things where I get caught up in a loop of like, but when was the original, like, when did the witness originally be created?
Yeah, no, there's no answer for that. It's all it's all in the wind. It's all in the shifting sands of time.
Right.
I still couldn't explain exactly how time travel works on this show. So I don't know if I'll ever have an answer to that, but I just think, like, in broad strokes, the idea that the utility of the plague was to create time travel. Was basically the idea. The details could be filled in by the viewer, but or more likely late in the show's run by some character giving exposition.
Right. Although, you know what, we failed to mention, we were talking about Jones and her realizing the gravity of what she's done with the creation of time travel. Yeah. We talked about these horrible monsters, but we didn't talk about the fact that she made these horrible monsters.
Yeah.
And that's pretty upsetting.
Yeah. Well, now Jones is confronted with that, and confronted with the idea that she has zapped out of her existence her own love story. She found happiness and can't even remember it.
Yeah.
It doesn't even exist in the time stream that as it currently stands. And that, between that and being confronted with that knowledge and losing Sam and everything just kind of going bad like that, I just wonder what Jones is going to be up to the rest of this season. Because that's a tough blow for her.
Yeah. There's no way that she's the witness.
No.
But I wonder what kind of something epic is going to happen with her.
Well, we could find out, again, if it's true that time travel started all of this, it could end up that Jones is the sort of accidental big bad of all of this. That she's the catalyst for everything. That everything happened because Jones invented time travel. And that sort of unlocked all of this. And that would be, I think, a real, like, sort of piling on the realizations for her. That out of all this, like, her drive to fix the past actually ended up destroying the world.
Yeah, that would be a great direction for the show. Just because I do think, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I think that Barbara Sucre is definitely the best performer on the show. Not that, I mean, literally almost everybody on the show is great in their own right, but she's definitely my favorite performance. But that would just be one of the saddest stories.
Yeah, I think, I want that because I want her to be at the center of everything. I want her to be just at the middle of what's happening.
I think she's always been peripherally at the center. Like, she's not quite center. She's just like left or right of center here and there. But I think she's been this constant that I don't know that everybody would call her like the protagonist or the main character of the show. Yeah. But I certainly think I like there's so much. We talked about this last week about like how much of her characterization has been built up and how much we know about her and about the world that she came from. And now we know about this love that she had in an alternate timeline and all that stuff. And we know things, as we talked about with like Ramsey and Cassie too, but we just know we have such a rich, full understanding of her that I don't know if people necessarily automatically can tell that the show is very much about her.
Yeah, well, and I mean, the main characters of the show are always going to be Cassie and Cole, but what I like with an episode like this is how unclear, how blurry those lines get, where, Cassie's been overtaken, and Cole's got to rescue her, but he's doing it with sort of everyone's help. And then, the story with Jones and all, like, the show can be very much spread out everyone's roles so that it's not always just the Cassie and Cole show.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that is very commendable about 12 Monkeys is how how all the characters sort of get their time to shine, and it even when we get into a string of like Cassie and Cole travel in time to fight crime, I think the show is very mindful about not just becoming that and every other character is surrounding them and sort of just contributing to their story. It's very much like we get stories with all the characters. We never spend too long with just those two sort of gallivanting about time. Like it never became that show, which before 12 Monkeys ever aired is the kind of show I guessed it would have been, which is you have your two main characters and you sort of send them on time adventures. And everyone else, there's other cast members, and they have their own B stories and all that, but it's very much about those two characters. But 12 Monkeys has become something much more deep and confusing and mysterious than that, and is way, way messier than that sort of very clean, ready-for-TV premise, which honestly is probably why the ratings aren't so great, is that the show is much more challenging than it needs to be, and I think that's what probably the best quality about it, that it doesn't just settle for the easy answers and being more like procedural, but that's also like there's a reason procedural television is the most popular means, is that people get very challenged and get frustrated by the sort of confusion inherent in telling a more complicated story, and it's probably why the show is sort of a niche show at this point as opposed to a sort of mainstream show.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think people came looking for a new Doctor Who, and they got something much more enriched.
Yeah.
Sorry, Doctor Who fans.
They basically got lost in terms of just the sort of the guiding principle on which the show operates. Like not comparing any like the plot elements or whatever, but just in terms of like a show that trusts that you will enjoy being confounded.
Yeah, it's the spiritual. A lot of people have called it the spiritual successor to Battlestar Galactica in that way too. In the Battlestar Galactica way, it's in terms of the technology that we create sometimes maybe should not have been created. Mm-hmm. So
it's probably at the midpoint between those two. Lost and Battlestar Galactica. It's sort of applying the Lost a sentiment and frame of sort of storytelling mind to Battlestar Galactica more in terms of setting and in terms of theme.
Yes.
And sort of kind of the midpoint between those two.
Yes. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed Meltdown, and it reminded me so much of the season 1 episode where they went and they got the piece of the time machine from the science, the medical plant. I don't remember the name of that episode, but it probably would have been around the same time, I imagine, actually, in the season, probably like 7 or 8. So I'm very much a fan of these.
This sort of mid-season episodes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this was very much a mid-season episode. But that's not a bad thing. And 12 Monkeys does those very well. And has a way of making them feel important, and even though this never to me felt like a paradigm shifting episode, it was still like I suspect that in the coming weeks they're all going to be built upon what happened with Sam in this episode and what happened with Jones and Dr. Eklund, and just sort of this I think was our kind of our change of course episode, that we are now maybe the primaries are going to take a bit of a back seat here. At least in terms of like the sort of them being the A story where we are traveling back in time and dealing with messengers and all of that.
Now we're off to find the witness.
Yeah, off to find the witness. That's right. Figure out what's going on there. I just want to, before we go, I don't feel like I hit hard enough how cool the body horror of this of this episode was. Like, seeing the weird time monsters was super freaky and weird, and I just love that this show is like a horror movie now. Like,
no, I loved it so much.
Right?
It was so unexpected, in a really good way. As we talked about this season just being like the horror season in a lot of ways, like it went there, and it unabashedly went there. There were like entrails and guts and
Yeah.
and everything disgusting you could think of a human being being mushed together. Like the art department, the special effects department did like a great job. Like that was true, actual body horror. You don't see that all the time. And also Cole's face was hilarious when he was like, "Those could have been me."
Yeah, right. Yeah, Cole wasn't super pleased.
No, I don't think he was very pleased about pretty much anything that happened in this episode.
No, not Cole's best feelings for during this episode, especially when Ramsey was about to shoot Cassie.
Yes. I loved that Deacon was like, well, he's not going to shoot her and I can't shoot her, so it's got to be you.
Gotta be you. Yeah. You know what? That's kind of a blow to the burgeoning Deacon-Cassie romance.
Oh.
Is that Deacon was like, yo, you better go shoot her.
But he said, I know that I can't do it, but I also know that your kid can't get killed. Like, he knew it was the right thing. It's not that Deacon was being a jerk to her. It was just... No,
Deacon was being very pragmatic. And is as usual the only character with like his head screwed on straight, like completely. But all I'm saying that for romance purposes, Cole was the one who couldn't pull the trigger. Deacon, maybe not pulling the trigger himself, but was more than happy to send a hitman to do it.
Yes.
So something tells me we're losing Deacon this season.
Oh no!
I think Deacon is in a few not coming right up, but I suspect that he might be our end of season heroic sacrifice, as Dr. Eklund was a heroic sacrifice here. I feel like Deacon kind of has to die for Cole and Cassie's love to live, because it's not like they have to go in that direction, but it just kind of seems like we're gonna get there.
I don't want to let go of the Scav King. I love him so much.
I love the Scav King too. And if the show becomes like a Mad Max style, he and Cassie just roaming the wastelands, gathering scrap, Scav King and Scav Queen, listen, I'll go on that ride. But I don't think that's where we're headed.
No, I know. But I don't know that we're necessarily losing him either. I'm hoping there's an in-between.
Yeah, sure.
Although, if he did have to do the ultimate sacrifice, I'm sure that Todd Stashwick will do it with grace.
He's the greatest. Every line is great.
He's so good. All right. This wraps up our 18th episode of the 12 Monkeys podcast. Before we go, I want to mention a few things. You can download and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Libsyn. You can also hear all of our podcasts at our website, southgatemediagroup.com. Please subscribe to the show and also rate us. Check out my new podcast, Professional Geek Podcast, a show about how to be a professional and also a geek. And follow Kyle on TV Binges to read all about everything you love about TV. Follow the show on Twitter at 12monkeys_pod and Kyle and I at Kyle Loves TV and at Blaire Loves TV. Remember, both Kyle and Blaire have an E at the end. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.